associated his quest for the reason for living to what Andrew's character goes through in the film.
For years, Liam Neeson kept the most painful parts of his life out of the spotlight. When his wife, Natasha Richardson, died in 2009 after a skiing accident, the loss stunned Hollywood and left Neeson facing a future he never imagined. The tragedy made headlines around the world, but much of what happened in the hours and days that followed stayed private. Now, at 73, Neeson is finally opening up about that painful chapter in his life. So what really happened after the accident, and what has he carried with him all these years? Join us as we get into all the heartbreaking details. The early life that shaped Liam Neeson. Before Liam Neeson became one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces, his story began far from film sets and red carpets. He was born William John Neeson on June 7, 1952, in Ballymena, County Antrim, a small town in Northern Ireland where life moved at a steady, ordinary pace. His father, Bernard Barney Neeson, worked as a caretaker at a local primary school, while his mother, Catherine Kitty Neeson, worked as a cook. Kitty had been born and raised in Waterford in the southeast of Ireland before eventually settling in Ballymena. Together, they raised 4 children. Liam grew up alongside his 3 sisters, Elizabeth, Bernadette, and Rosaline, in a household shaped by strong Catholic values. In fact, the name Liam itself came from a local priest, a small detail that reflected just how closely faith and community were tied to everyday life in the Neeson family. But growing up in Ballymena also meant living in a town where Catholics were in the minority. Neeson would later remember that this sometimes made him more cautious as a young boy. At one point, he even reflected that there were moments when he felt like a second-class citizen. Even so, his experiences were not entirely defined by division. When he attended the town's predominantly Protestant technical college, he later explained that he was never made to feel inferior or different there. Looking back on his early life, Neeson often pushed back against the idea that his childhood was dramatic or rebellious. He once reflected that it might sound more exciting to imagine a loud and rebellious Irish upbringing, but the truth was much simpler. Yes, he was Irish, but the romantic image of singing rebel songs and drowning emotions in pints of Guinness was never really his world. Still, the political tensions in Northern Ireland were impossible to ignore forever. For many years, Neeson admitted that he felt largely disconnected from the deeper politics surrounding him. That changed after the events of Bloody Sunday in 1972, when British soldiers shot and killed unarmed protesters in Derry during the conflict known as the Troubles. Watching fellow students protest forced him to start paying closer attention to the history unfolding around him. Later in life, he would reflect on how deeply those years stayed with him. The violence and division touched people on both sides of the conflict, and he explained that the memories of that period never truly left his mind. He had known people who were victims and others who were involved in the violence itself, both Protestants and Catholics, and those experiences became something he carried with him for the rest of his life. But politics was only one part of Neeson's early story. As a boy, he found another outlet that demanded discipline and focus. At just 9 years old, he joined boxing lessons at the All Saints Youth Club. The sport quickly became a major part of his life, and over the years he went on to win several regional boxing titles. For a time, it looked like boxing might shape his future, but by the age of 17, he stepped away from the sport. During those same years, another interest was beginning to grow. While attending St. Patrick's College in Ballymena from 1963 to 1967, Neeson started appearing in school plays. It was there that he first discovered a love for performance and storytelling. An unusual influence also helped spark that curiosity. At one point, Neeson sneaked into a church service led by Ian Paisley, the fiery preacher who would later found the Democratic Unionist Party. Watching Paisley deliver his sermons left a strong impression on him. The preacher's powerful voice and commanding presence held the room in a way that felt almost theatrical. Neeson later reflected that it felt like watching a performance unfold right in front of him, both intense and captivating. By 1971, Neeson had enrolled at Queen's University Belfast, choosing to study physics and computer science. It was a practical path, but his time there introduced him to new possibilities. While studying at the university, he discovered he had real talent on the football field. His performances even caught the attention of Sion Thomas from Bohemian FC. That opportunity led to a club trial in Dublin, where Neeson played one match as a substitute against Shamrock Rovers. For a brief moment, it seemed possible that his life might move in the direction of professional football. But the trial did not lead to a contract, and that path soon came to an end. Not long after leaving university, Neeson took a job working at the Guinness Brewery. At the time, his future was still uncertain, and nothing about his life suggested that he would one day become one of the most respected actors in the world. Yet the experiences of those early years, from the classrooms of Ballymena to the boxing ring and the football field, were all part of the road that would eventually lead him toward the stage, and later, the screen. How Liam Neeson rose to fame. Before the tragedy that changed his life. After leaving university, Liam Neeson returned to his hometown of Ballymena, still trying to figure out where life would take him. The path ahead was far from clear, and like many young men his age, he took whatever work he could find. He spent time operating a forklift at the Guinness factory and even worked as a lorry driver. At one point, he enrolled in a teacher training college in Newcastle upon Tyne, hoping that education might offer a stable future. But after 2 years, he once again found himself back in Ballymena, still searching for something that truly felt right. That turning point came in 1976, when Neeson joined the Lyric Players Theatre in Belfast. For the next 2 years, he immersed himself in stage performances, gaining the kind of experience that only live theatre can offer. It was during this period that he stepped in front of a film camera for the first time. In 1977, he appeared in the religious film Pilgrim's Progress, playing both Jesus Christ and the evangelist. The project may have been small, but it gave him his first taste of working in film. Soon after, another opportunity pulled him further into the world of acting. In 1978, he moved to Dublin after being offered a role in Ron Hutchinson's play Says I, Says He, a drama centered around the tensions of the Troubles. The move opened new doors. He became involved in several productions at the Project Arts Centre before eventually joining the Abbey Theatre, Ireland's national theatre, and one of the most respected stages in the country. His reputation within the theatre world continued to grow. In 1980, he appeared alongside actors Stephen Rea, Ray McAnally, and Mick Lally in Brian Friel's play translations. The production marked the first performance of Field Day Theatre Company and premiered at the Guildhall in Derry in September of that year. For Neeson, it was another step into serious acting work. But the moment that truly changed his trajectory came when filmmaker John Boorman saw him performing on stage as Lenny Small in Of Mice and Men. Boorman was impressed by what he saw and soon offered Neeson a role in the fantasy epic Excalibur, casting him as Sir Gawain. The opportunity pushed Neeson into a larger spotlight and eventually led him to move to London, where he began balancing theatre work with small roles in films and television. During the filming of Excalibur, Neeson met actress Helen Mirren. The two developed a relationship and even lived together for a period while their careers continued to develop. Over the next several years, Neeson began appearing in a steady stream of films. Between 1982 and 1987, he worked on 5 different projects, including The Bounty alongside Mel Gibson and Anthony Hopkins and The Mission with Robert De Niro and Jeremy Irons. Television soon followed. In 1986, he appeared in the popular crime series Miami Vice, and the growing visibility from these projects eventually encouraged him to make another major move. In 1987, Neeson relocated to Hollywood in pursuit of bigger roles. Once there, his career started gaining real momentum. He starred opposite Cher and Dennis Quaid in the legal thriller Suspect, a performance that drew strong attention from critics. The following year, he appeared alongside Clint Eastwood in The Dead Pool, the fifth film in the Dirty Harry series, where he played a horror film director caught in the middle of a deadly investigation. By 1990, Neeson landed the lead role in Sam Raimi's dark superhero film, Darkman. The movie performed well and introduced him to a wider audience, though the years that followed were still uneven in terms of recognition. One of the roles during that period was the title character in Ethan Frome in 1993, a dramatic performance that showed his range. Then came the role that changed everything. Director Steven Spielberg had been searching for the right actor to play Oskar Schindler in his Holocaust film Schindler's List. After seeing Neeson perform on Broadway in Anna Christie, Spielberg became convinced he had found the man for the role. Several major stars had expressed interest in the part, including Kevin Costner, Mel Gibson, and Warren Beatty. Beatty even went as far as auditioning. But in December 1992, the role ultimately went to Neeson. His performance as Schindler stunned audiences and critics alike. The film went on to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards, while Neeson earned a nomination for Best Actor. He also received nominations from both the BAFTAs and the Golden Globes, cementing his place among the most respected actors in the industry. That same year also brought a major personal milestone. In 1993, Neeson made his Broadway debut in a revival of Eugene O'Neill's Anna Christie, starring opposite Natasha Richardson. The two had previously worked together on Ellis Island, and their connection soon grew into something deeper. Neeson's performance on stage earned him a Tony Award nomination for Best Actor in a Play. But, even more importantly, the production marked the beginning of the relationship that would later lead to marriage. As the years moved forward, Neeson continued building a career defined by versatility. He later joined the Star Wars universe as Qui-Gon Jinn in The Phantom Menace, a role that introduced him to an entirely new generation of fans and earned him another wave of critical praise. From historical dramas to action thrillers and large-scale franchises, Neeson continued to move across genres. Decades after those early theater days in Belfast and Dublin, he remained one of the most recognizable actors in the world, still taking on new roles that kept audiences watching. Liam Neeson and Natasha Richardson, the love story that ended in tragedy. For Liam Neeson, many relationships came and went over the years, but one stood above all the rest. His love story with actress Natasha Richardson became the most meaningful chapter of his personal life. A relationship that lasted 16 years and seemed to grow stronger with time until tragedy suddenly brought it to an end in 2009. Their story began in the world they both knew best, the stage. Richardson had already starred in a London production of Anna Christie and was determined to bring the play to Broadway. When the project moved to New York, she had a clear idea of who she wanted opposite her. She sought out Liam Neeson to play the Irish sailor Matt Burke, believing he was exactly what the role needed. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times in 1993, she even suggested that playwright Eugene O'Neill might as well have written the part specifically for Neeson. The play opened on January 14, 1994, at the Criterion Center in New York City and quickly drew glowing reviews. The production became such a success that its run was extended, and critics praised the chemistry between the two leads. The New York Times celebrated Richardson's performance as one of the most powerful of the season and also highlighted the emotional connection she shared on stage with Neeson. But while the sparks between them were becoming impossible to ignore, the situation behind the scenes was complicated. Richardson was 29 at the time and married to British producer Robert Fox. Neeson, who was 40, had his own romantic history that had often made headlines. He had previously been in a long relationship with Helen Mirren and had even proposed to Brooke Shields not long before meeting Richardson. Yet something about working together on Anna Christie changed everything. Neeson would later reflect that acting alongside Richardson felt like a dance, an easy rhythm that carried both of them through the performance. Years later, during an interview on 60 Minutes, he admitted that he had never experienced that kind of explosive chemistry with another actor before. Not long after the play's run ended, Richardson's marriage to Fox came to an end. She later admitted that the timing of everything had been messy. As she once explained, her marriage had already been falling apart while she was working with Neeson, and the public attention surrounding their growing connection only made the situation more complicated. Still, she could not deny what had happened. She admitted that she had fallen deeply in love with him. Their relationship continued to grow even as Neeson traveled to Poland to film Schindler's List, the role that would soon earn him his first Academy Award nomination. During that time, he sent Richardson a birthday card for her 30th birthday. The message seemed playful, but the way he signed it raised questions. He ended the note with the name of his character from the film, Oskar Schindler. Richardson reportedly wrote back with a direct response. The message felt too casual for someone she had such strong feelings for, and she wanted clarity about where they truly stood. That moment forced Neeson to confront what he had been feeling all along. He later explained that it was then he realized the relationship was something real, something genuine that needed to be protected. As their romance grew stronger, the couple began appearing together in public. One of their earliest moments as a couple came when they walked the red carpet hand in hand at the 1993 Tony Awards, where both had been nominated for their performances in Anna Christie. About a year into their relationship, they decided to make their commitment official. Neeson and Richardson married in an intimate ceremony at their farmhouse in Millbrook, New York. The wedding was small, but filled with familiar faces from the entertainment world. Around 70 guests attended, including Emma Thompson, Steven Spielberg, and Mia Farrow. The ceremony itself held a surprise Neeson would never forget. Without telling him beforehand, Richardson had been secretly taking singing lessons so she could perform for him at the wedding. After the ceremony ended and the celebration began, she took the microphone and sang Van Morrison's Crazy Love. The moment caught Neeson completely off guard and left him stunned. Soon after their marriage, the couple appeared together on screen for the first time in the 1994 film Nell. Richardson had actually sought out the role once Neeson had been cast, hoping to avoid spending long stretches apart while filming took place in North Carolina. Family life followed soon after. On June 22, 1995, they welcomed their first son, Michael. Years later, he would follow both of his parents into acting and eventually adopt the last name Richardson as a tribute to his mother. Just over a year later, on August 27, 1996, the couple welcomed their second son, Daniel. The close timing of the pregnancies surprised Richardson. She admitted at the time that she had expected to have more children eventually, just not so quickly. Balancing motherhood with her acting career brought mixed emotions at first, but before long she embraced the chaos and joy that came with raising two young boys so close in age. For years, their marriage seemed strong and steady, built on shared work, family life, and a deep affection for each other. Then, in 2009, everything changed. Natasha Richardson suffered a head injury that would ultimately take her life, leaving Neeson facing the most painful loss he had ever known. The ski accident that took Natasha Richardson and shattered Liam Neeson's world. In March 2009, Natasha Richardson traveled to the Mont Tremblant ski resort in Quebec, Canada, for what was meant to be a relaxing winter getaway. No one could have imagined that a simple fall on the slopes would soon turn into one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking tragedies. On the morning of March 16th, the Tony Award-winning actress was taking a private ski lesson at Station Mont Tremblant. While skiing on the resort's Nansen beginner slope, she suddenly fell and struck her head. At first, the accident did not seem alarming. Natasha was conscious, speaking normally, and even appeared calm after the fall. Ski patrol quickly arrived and examined her on the slope. Since she did not show obvious signs of injury, she was taken to a small clinic near the mountain as a precaution. According to reports, paramedics received the first call at 12:43 p.m., and by 1 p.m., an ambulance had arrived to bring her to the nearby clinic. After a brief medical check, Natasha insisted she felt fine and did not want further treatment. She signed a medical waiver and was released from the clinic at about 1:10 p.m. Soon after, she walked back to her hotel with the ski instructor and a member of the ski patrol, arriving in her suite around 1:30 p.m. For a short time, everything appeared normal. Natasha spoke with those around her and even contacted her husband, Liam Neeson, who was in Toronto filming the thriller Chloe. When she told him about the fall, she brushed it off casually and described it as nothing more than a tumble in the snow. But the situation was far more serious than anyone realized. Natasha had suffered a severe brain injury known as an epidural hematoma, a type of bleeding between the skull and the brain. In many cases, the person may appear fine at first, before the pressure inside the skull begins to build. Over the next few hours, her condition began to worsen. At 2:59 p.m., another emergency call was made, and an ambulance arrived shortly afterward. She was rushed to the Centre Hospitalier Laurentien in Saint-Agathe, where doctors quickly realized the injury was far more dangerous than it had initially seemed. Later that evening, around 7 p.m., she was transferred again to a larger hospital in Montreal, Hôpital du Sacré-Cœur. As doctors worked to stabilize her, Liam Neeson rushed to reach her side. He boarded a flight from Toronto, but while he was in the air, the plane was diverted to Montreal. By the time he arrived at the hospital, doctors showed him the scans of her brain. The images confirmed the devastating reality of the injury. When Neeson finally reached Natasha, she was already on life support and had been declared brain dead. In that painful moment, he spoke to her, even though he did not know whether she could hear him. He told her she was not coming back from the injury and explained that they would bring her home to New York so that family and friends could be there. Natasha was flown to Lenox Hill Hospital in New York City the following day. On March 18, 2009, 2 days after the accident, she passed away at the age of 45. As the news spread, loved ones gathered at the hospital in the hours before her death was publicly announced. Her mother, the legendary actress Vanessa Redgrave, her sister Joey Lee Richardson, actress Lauren Bacall, and Liam Neeson were among those who rushed to be by her side. A private wake was later held at the American Irish Historical Society in New York City. Shortly afterward, family and friends gathered again for her funeral at St. Peter's Church in upstate New York, not far from the Millbrook home where she and Liam had married years earlier. The loss sent shockwaves through both Hollywood and the theater world. Natasha had grown up surrounded by the stage as the daughter of actress Vanessa Redgrave and director Tony Richardson, and she later carved out an impressive career of her own. Her work in the 1998 Broadway revival of Cabaret had earned her a Tony Award, and colleagues remembered her not only for her talent, but also for her warmth and generosity. Actor Ralph Fiennes, who had worked with her both on stage and on screen, described the loss as devastating and remembered her as a remarkable actress and an incredibly loyal friend. Lindsay Lohan, who starred alongside her in The Parent Trap, shared that Natasha had treated her like family. For Liam Neeson and their two sons, the loss changed everything. In the years that followed, Neeson coped with the grief by returning to work. He appeared in several films in 2010 alone, including Clash of the Titans, The A-Team, and The Next 3 Days, keeping himself constantly busy. He later explained that work helped keep him from sinking too deeply into grief, especially because he needed to stay strong for his sons. Even years later, Natasha's memory remains a daily presence in his life. Neeson has revealed that he still visits her grave often and speaks to her as though she were still there beside him. Their sons have carried her legacy forward in their own ways. Michael eventually changed his last name to Richardson to honor his mother and has followed both of his parents into acting. Daniel has pursued creative projects as well, building businesses while keeping his mother's memory close to his heart. For the family she left behind, Natasha Richardson's passing remains an unimaginable loss. Yet the love she shared with Liam and their sons continues to live on long after that tragic day on the mountain. At 73, Liam Neeson breaks silence on his wife's death. After Natasha Richardson passed away in 2009, Liam Neeson made a decision that would shape the years that followed. Instead of speaking publicly about the tragedy, he chose to carry the grief in private. He avoided interviews about the accident and rarely addressed what had happened. For a long time, the pain of losing his wife remained something he kept far from the public eye. But even in silence, the depth of his love for Natasha never faded. In 2016, Neeson shared a personal tribute that revealed just how much ear absence still weighed on him. He wrote that losing someone you love is the hardest thing in the world. His wife's death had come suddenly and without warning, and the loss had changed everything. Natasha, he reflected, had brought him enormous joy and had been the center of his world. Yet when he looked back on their marriage, the memories were not filled only with sorrow. Neeson often spoke about those 16 years together as a time that taught him how to love in the most complete and unconditional ways. The experience also changed the way he sees relationships. He has often encouraged people to pause and appreciate the person beside them, because life can shift in a moment. One day, you might glance up and realize the person you love is no longer there. Even now, years after her passing, the loss can still appear in unexpected ways. There are moments, Neeson has admitted, when he hears the door opening in his home and instinctively thinks Natasha has just walked in. For a brief second, the mind plays a familiar trick, bringing back a memory so vivid that it feels real. Over the years, Neeson has opened up about his wife's death on a few occasions, including while promoting the 2020 film Made in Italy. The project carried a personal weight that few roles ever had before. In the film, Neeson stars alongside his eldest son, Michael Richardson, in a story about a father and son trying to rebuild their relationship while coping with the death of a wife and mother. The subject matter was painfully close to their own lives. For Neeson, stepping into the role of a grieving husband became an emotional release. He explained that the experience felt cathartic, the kind of moment when art allows emotions that have been buried for years to finally surface. Some of the scenes carried a heavy emotional charge, but both father and son approached the project with honesty. Working together gave them a chance to connect on a deeper level, while confronting the grief they had both carried for so long. Still, grief does not disappear simply because time passes. Neeson has spoken about how memories can begin to blur as the years go by. Sometimes the mind struggles to hold on to small details, and in those moments, he finds himself relying on the stories shared by friends who also knew and loved Natasha. Even dreams have rarely brought her back to him, something he once admitted with a hint of sadness. Yet in his own way, he still speaks to her every day. Her grave lies about 1.5 miles from his home, and Neeson often walks there to visit. During those visits, he talks to her as if she were still beside him. He knows she cannot answer, but the ritual keeps a connection alive. Her death also pushed him to reflect on deeper questions about life and faith. Neeson had stepped away from the Catholic beliefs of his childhood years earlier, but the experience of losing someone so close forced him to think again about the mysteries of life and what might exist beyond it. Even with all the reflection, he has often said that grief is something no one can truly prepare for. In an interview with Esquire, Neeson explained that grief does not follow a schedule. It arrives without warning, sometimes in the quietest moments. He once thought he might be able to control it, to set aside time to cry and then move forward. But the reality proved very different. Grief moves on its own terms. Sometimes it arrives in the middle of the night. Other times it appears while he is out walking, feeling calm and content. Then, suddenly, it hits with the force of a wave, a sharp reminder that the person you loved is gone. In the early years after Natasha's death, the experience was especially overwhelming. Neeson found himself adjusting to a completely different life while raising 2 teenage sons on his own. Mishael and Daniel were just 13 and 12 when they lost their mother, and Neeson had to find a way to guide them through their grief while managing his own. Work became one of the ways he held himself together. Neeson has often admitted that he struggles when he is not working, because without that focus, it becomes easier to sink into sadness. Staying active in his career helped him keep moving forward and remain strong for his sons. During those first years, even ordinary sounds could bring back the weight of the loss. Hearing the front door open sometimes triggered an instinctive reaction because he had grown so used to the way Natasha entered the house. For a brief moment, he would expect to see her walk in, and the realization that she was gone would follow immediately after. Yet despite the pain, Neeson has also found a deeper appreciation for the time he shared with Natasha. Their years together remain a source of strength, and the love they built during those 16 years continues to shape his life in unimaginable ways. Which Liam Neeson movie is your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.